So I prepared this talk to give you an overview of how things have changed in the space of mobile computing, and just to look at what the possibilities for the future may be, since many of you are about to embark on this career in this space. So that's the idea. So in this talk, we will go through a history of mobile handsets, how the handsets themselves have evolved, how the supporting infrastructure, the communication networks have changed, and one of the major events that changed the way we live was the introduction of the iPhone. And subsequent to that, there were apps which I call mega apps, apps that are so popular that it would be hard to imagine today's world without them. And then we'll look at some trends of how apps and cell phone usage are changing and try to explore what all this can mean for you. So, history of mobile handsets. Let's look at how the phones have evolved. So, the first mobile phone, the early mobile phone, the very first one was actually created by Motorola in 1973, long before any of you were born, I suppose. And this handset, this gentleman, he is one of the inventors. He appeared for a photo shoot in 2007 reenactment, and this handset that he has in his hand, it weighs 2 kilos. That's more than your laptop. So, and then what happened after the phone was invented? Then communication technologies improved, and finally in 1979, commercial cell phone networks were created, and the general public had access to it. Before that, it might have been government agencies and CIA and FBI kind of people. So what happened? I'm going to dim the lights a bit. I think this is too bright. You can do that? You remember? Okay, good. So, oh, that's too dark. So just a little bit brighter. Okay, good. Thanks. Use those little buttons right to the right of the panel. The upper one increases the brightness. Yes. Good. So 1973 we had a 2 kilogram phone. Then increasingly lighter phones, what we now call dumb phones. These were the very early mobile phones that allowed you to make calls and maybe text. And then a Canadian invention, BlackBerry. And a few years down the road from there, Apple iPhone. The iPhone changed everything. It introduced so many things that basically it's like a computer in your pocket. In pictures, this is the evolution from the 2 kilogram Motorola all the way to the iPhone. And some of you have probably used the older phones as well. What happened in parallel to the mobile communication technology? So 1979, as we saw in the earlier slide, that 1G networks came about that allowed people to make phone calls with their 2 kilogram phones. And then in 1991, the 2G network, the second generation of the technology, which allowed phone calls and text, so an improvement. In 2001, 3G, which added data, ability to communicate with the internet. In 2009 is when 4G, WiMAX and LTE standards were introduced, which is what most of us use right now on our phones. And 5G is coming. 5G is actually, it is a released standard. There is equipment being manufactured and a lot of controversy also happening around it. Who is going to do it and who is not? So, June 2007, the first iPhone was released. And I call this a landmark event because what happened after that is completely revolutionary. So why was the launch of the iPhone a landmark event? For one thing, it was packed with innovation and features that opened the doors for a different experience. Before that, there was no touch screen. So the touch screen, what it meant was that suddenly entire phone was the screen. Before that, there was the BlackBerry, which had half screen, half keyboard. Accelerometer. The phone knew how it was moving. The GPS sensor. The phone knew where on earth you were. And a full Linux-like operating system, iOS, that allowed you to connect to the internet, to browse the internet. Safari was there. You could actually, for the first time, browse regular internet. Before that, there was some, WAP and all that wireless application protocol, which was very limited because the screens were very small. They were very hard to interact with. And on top of all that, there was even a camera. So today, a phone has replaced all these devices. A music player, I forget to mention that it has an inbuilt music player because before the iPhone came the iPod. So this phone got rid of your iPod, your camera, your GPS, your cell phone, all of them into one device. So this was actually a very big uh, change. And then right after that, the following year, Apple created the App Store, allowing anybody, any developer to start creating apps, and in fact earn revenue. Even today, it's the same model. Apple takes a cut, and the developers they get about 70% of it. And with this, what happened was that there were apps that were created specifically for the iPhone. It wasn't that, oh, this is on PC, let's convert this to a phone app. No, there were apps which relied on features that were not available on a computer, like the accelerometer. So there were games. There were these little games that you could play by just, I don't know, that little, in which you take a little ball around a circuit, bring it to the motion. So all those things started happening, which were not possible before. That kind of programming was not done. And relying on touch screen, all of a sudden you could zoom things, you could zoom out with just your fingers. All of that have started happening. And the camera had its own ability. It allowed FaceTime. So the first version did not have FaceTime. First version of the iPhone did not have a front camera. It only had a back camera. So this came a little bit later. Anyway, when something very good comes in the market, other people see it and they want to compete. So obviously competition came. Android operating system, it was actually being built while Apple was working on the iPhone. So Google bought the company Android in 2005. This was 2 years before the iPhone was launched. And Apple released the first version of Android in 2007, right around the time, maybe a few months after the iPhone launched. And it took a while, it took another year before the first phone that used the Android operating system came out. This is what it was. It was called the HTC Dream. Still, you can see they were holding on to the past. They wanted a keyboard, a physical keyboard. Nobody today makes a phone with a physical keyboard. Even BlackBerry does not make it anymore. So this was the first Android phone commercial. With Android, something different happened. Apple is a very locked system. Only they make the devices, only they make the operating system, only Apple sells the apps, so it's very locked. With Android, they allowed anybody to make the devices, and they made it available to anybody. Whatever company wanted to manufacture an Android device, they could install in the Android operating system. So today there are more than 12,000 different makes and models of Android devices. It is the platform of choice in many parts of the world. If you go to Asia, for example, most of the phones you will see people using are Android phones. That's why it has the 85. It has an 85% market share, and a lot of innovations come out of Android. Apple follows them. So let's talk now about what I'm calling the mega apps. What what is a mega app and how it has changed the way we live. So, how would you define a mega app? If it were up to you, what characteristics would a mega app have? Too many people, used by lots of people. Good. Become part of our life, does something useful for us. Right? Yeah? What else? Maybe it generates employment or income, or for people. It helps people to improve their lives in that way. Those kind of things. Let's look at what reasons I could come up with. So the first one, like you said, I've given it a more concrete number. And any app that has been downloaded more than 500 million times. So today that's not a very big number. There are billions of smartphone users. So 500 million is not that big, but it is still, it's a massive. Or allowed massive increase in productivity. So there are some apps which are not downloaded 500 million times, but they have still had a very big impact, like the Uber driver app. There are not 500 million people driving for Uber. The number may be much smaller, but yet it is a mega app. Without the driver app, there won't be a passenger app, and you cannot work with that. Or it has changed the way something is done by the masses. So, what are the examples of how some things have changed? Like, for example, photo sharing. Right? Before cell phones, you could take pictures with a digital camera, but then you had to connect it to your computer, download them, and then attach it to an email and get an error, files are too big, and all that. Now you don't think twice. You just take a picture and just hit the share button or select a bunch of them. So those kind of things. So Instagram is a good example. Twitter. These have also, not only they fit the other categories, but they have changed some things. So this is what we are going to call a mega app. So can you guess what the first mega app was, which fit some of these criteria? Facebook, WhatsApp. Facebook, WhatsApp came around 7-8 years ago. Facebook also, the app, Facebook, the concept was already very popular, but the app was not as popular at that time. That's why Facebook bought WhatsApp. So it is not Facebook or WhatsApp. Okay, let's see. What category do you think the first mega app came from? Maybe a camera. So camera is like an inbuilt feature of the phone, right? So it's like if you have a smartphone, there is a camera on it. So really, the camera app is a part of the operating system. So this is, we're talking about somebody who developed an app. So there are apps like what you mentioned, WhatsApp, Facebook. These are like communication tools or utility apps. There are apps which do business things, which do finance things. So what category? It's a very popular category. No. Clock is also an inbuilt app. What do people do most often on their phone? Game, exactly. It was a game. So what game was it? The very first game that became huge. Angry Birds. Everybody and their mother-in-law was playing that game, if they had one. So this was the first app that reached those proportions. Almost, this was the very first one. In fact, I remember people, all ages, young kids to old people, all playing Angry Birds on their phone. Perfect waste of time. So that's and this was created by a company called Rovio, and their philosophy was they said that we want to create an app that was designed to be touched. So the whole thing was touching the screen, dragging that thing and releasing it. That's how they did it. And then more games. So games was actually the first category where lots of mega apps first came. Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. They all came after the games. And some of you may have played these games, Clash of Clans, Candy Crush, and Temple Run. And Pokemon Go is actually not that old. It is 4 years ago. And I remember that once I'd gone to a park with some friends, and their son was there. And there were all these people randomly walking in the park looking at their phone. So I asked him, what is going on here? He said, oh, they're playing Pokemon Go. So then he told me what it was, and just out of curiosity, I downloaded it and I installed it. And I said, "Oh, this is pretty neat. It goes beyond the device. You are now connected to the world around you in some way." So there are different categories of apps. So entertainment, games, videos, music, social media, utilities, business apps. So for example, Microsoft Office app on your phone or Google Drive app would fall into maybe more than one category. Business is one of them. Education, learning and teaching, Blackboard probably has an app. Does Blackboard have an app on it? So those kind of things. Health apps, living better, Fitbit and all these things, that calorie counters and exercise related apps and all those things. So I'm sure that you have all, you can all come up with some names in each category that you are aware of. There has been a lot of development, lot of change. So these are some examples of the mega apps. So Angry Birds we saw, WhatsApp we have heard already from, Uber and Instagram. So this is just a handful. There are so many more mega apps today. And what was it, if you were to think about it for a moment, to see what was it that made these apps successful? First thing is they are useful. Somehow they are useful. Either they are entertaining or useful. People like them. They made it easy to do things that were earlier difficult or not possible. So, for example, what Uber does, it was not possible before the smartphone. Cab services were there, but they required a head office, somebody, dispatcher, who will call the radio, all the cabs, and then somebody will say. It was a very different operation. Today, it is from the passenger's phone to the company's servers to the driver's phone. Very different. And without the GPS, it would not have been possible. So again, a lot of things coming together. They allow the users or the developers to make a living or earn extra cash. So in the case of games and all, it's the developers who make money. In the case of Uber and other delivery type of services, it's the person earning their own their income. They utilize the features and innovation. We already talked about the GPS sensor. The timing is also very important. I'll give you an example. There was a company called Z.com, Z.com, maybe around 2000. That company did, it allowed people to upload videos and share them. But that was the time when broadband internet was not very common. So first of all, very few people could upload and very few people could view. So their business model was just like YouTube, but they were 4 or 5 years before YouTube. So they folded. And then YouTube comes and guess what? Allows people to upload and share videos. And today it is huge. So the timing can also be important. And ultimately all of these things would be irrelevant if the app did not make us feel good. There is something, about these apps. For example, if you call an Uber, how many of you will actually look at that thing and keep looking at it every couple of minutes? Where is the driver now? Where is the driver? There is something about it. It seems like you are in control. You are moving that car. May not be the case. So overall, they all make us feel good. Communication, WhatsApp. Today you can keep in touch with your families, friends all over. Most of you have family abroad. So without WhatsApp or some tool like that, It would be so hard to maintain that level of contact, that level of communication. So can you name some other mega apps that we haven't talked about so far? Maybe you have some on your own phone. Snapchat, good. Twitter, TikTok. What is that? Is that a game?
No, no, it's a social media where you have videos and all.
Okay.
Like you can take any dialogue from any film and you can shoot it and upload it.
Good. So that's so I don't know if I have a slide on it, but what is the number one app in terms of usage, amount of screen time it gets in the world? Close. It's not WhatsApp, it's not Facebook. Safari. Okay. Excluding web browsers, right? A web browser is mostly an inbuilt functionality. YouTube. YouTube is the number one app. Majority of the time we spend on a phone or people spend is on YouTube. So let's talk about a little bit about how important cell phones have become as a part of our lives. How attached are we? A typical, so these are numbers from a book. That's the name of the book, How to Build a $1 Billion App. A typical smartphone user looks at their device 150 times a day. You can actually count on this. You can, if you want, I'm sure some of the phones even give you statistics. Average is over 2 hours and 30 minutes on it, more than 17% of waking hours. So these numbers are about 2 years old. I'm sure the number is even higher now. Out of that, 20% is spent browsing the web and the rest on the apps. So 20% of the time we are on the web. And a very important aspect is that 24% of the activities that people did at that time, they would share on the internet somehow, tweet or put it on Facebook. It's that important a part of life today, all of this. And how about, okay, as a group, what is going on? There are right now 2.7 billion smartphone users, maybe more by now. Since I finished the sentence, maybe more by now. 77% of Americans, most of the statistics are easier to get for the US. They seem to be a lot more into collecting this. So 77% of Americans have smartphones. 47% of them say that they could not live without their devices. It has become that critical. A lot of people feel very unsafe if their battery dies. It's the biggest cause of anxiety today. Is how much battery, if their battery is about to die, people become very anxious. And if they don't have a way to keep it running. That's how important they are. And people buy things, they download lots of apps, so lots of money is spent through the phones. So what does it mean? There is a famous quote by Winston Churchill at the end of the World War II. He said, "Now this is not the end, it is not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning." So there is so much more that could happen in this space in the next 10 or 20 years that we would be amazed. So the question is, where do we go from here? What does the future look like? There are lots of innovations that are happening around us right now. We've heard a lot of buzzwords. So there will be more mega apps 5, 10 years from now. There will be more. Why? Because things are changing. 5G. 5G networks are much more capable than 4G networks. They allow much faster downloads, very low latency. So embedding a communication, like a SIM card, like a chip, in anything becomes a lot more realistic possibility. Internet of Things, that's what will bring Internet of Things. Everything can have a 5G chip in it. It could be talking to the internet, your fridge, your lawnmower, the wheels in your car, name it. So Internet of Things, wearables. A lot of people already wear, the Fitbit type of bands on their wrist. There are other things that that come into wearables. There was one very famous one, Google Glass, which did not work out. Maybe it was ahead of its time. There will be something else. So wearables, and then maybe you even have courses on some of these things here. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and big data. So these are also changing the way things could be done. Artificial intelligence and machine learning allows you to build devices, build algorithms that will learn from whatever is going on, and they'll process big data, huge amounts of data. Imagine if there is an Internet of Things when it is there, your thermostat, your fridge, whatever, all your things are talking to something on the internet, all the data that is being collected. What can you do with it? Can you improve reliability? For example, in a manufacturing facility, there is a chip in some critical part, and that part knows somehow is able to measure that, okay, my life is about to be up, or there is a problem coming. It can beam the information somewhere and say, okay, all those things are going to happen. So this is some information about 5G. I won't spend too much time on this, but 5G has, potentially a lot more capability than 4G. Internet of Things, the same thing. Smart homes are becoming common. Smart vehicles, smart businesses. There was somewhere I heard about this question. These people who ask questions from advisors. There was a woman who wrote to this advisor saying that I have a problem. I was running my dryer during the day, and my husband messaged me from work that this is the peak rate of electricity, and he turned off the dryer from his cell phone. So she said, I feel like I am being stalked all the time by my husband, that I can't do anything without him knowing. So problems will also come. So wearables, medical devices. Yes, in wearables category, there is, there are things like there is this sugar level, an app to monitor sugar level. So all you do is they give you free sensing. It's like a little tabs, and you give it a drop of your blood, and it will capture the reading and put it in the app. Again, all that data is being collected. Somebody knows what your blood sugar levels are. So the same thing, IoT, big data, AI, ML. So the question is, how does this tie into mobile apps? So future mega apps. So these are just some possibilities. Education. So education is one space where things have changed, but not as dramatically. People still go to the same schools. They're taught in pretty much the same way. Yes, there is some use of computers and phones, but not a very big change. So what could be there? Healthcare. Again, healthcare systems have been very slow to catch up. Just to give you an example, has anybody tried to make an appointment with the doctor here? What do you have to do? Okay, walk-in clinic is one, but a family doctor, somebody who has a family doctor, typically what they have to do is they have to call. They'll get a voicemail saying nobody is available to pick up the phone, and then they don't accept voicemails unless you're canceling an appointment. So you keep trying until you get somebody, and then somebody, a human, will help you. They'll say, okay, how about this day? How about that day? So much time is wasted. Whereas calling an Uber, you don't have to talk to anybody. There are people who don't like to talk to people anymore because they can press a button and get it done. Why should I have to talk to people? So that kind of change will happen with healthcare. Lots of business apps, still finance. These are places where there's always, there are people looking to make money, so they do. This is just some examples. Maybe just take a moment. Maybe you can think of some possibility, something in your life, in your own life, that you do a certain way which you think could be improved. an app for it, or something in somebody else's life that you see, maybe your parents, maybe your friends. That's where the innovations come from. So as we saw, we are increasingly more reliant on our phones and devices. And innovation, any innovation in technology today, if it is to be successful, it must reach a device, either in the form of an app or a website or whatever it is. Unless people can see it, use it on their phone, that new technology is not going to be very effective. Even smart cars. Smart cars are only smart because you can do things from your phone. You can start your car or whatever, things like that. And even Internet of Things, when it happens, that everything has a chip in it, including this chair, for example. These will all require some programming, something to be built, some logic to it. Those are all mobile apps, if you think about it. So they will communicate. They're sitting on a very small device, and they will communicate with something. So now, looking at you, what is the future? What does it hold for you as you enter this exciting space? So these are again just some possibilities. You're not limited to these. So you could basically, in this space, you could join the workforce trying to bring new technology to the market. You could work for big companies, small companies. Everywhere there is some activity going on. Every company seems to have a mobile app division. And entertainment, educational institutions, all of these have today some need for this. You could also create your own apps. You could exploit opportunities that you see and systematically develop your own apps. So this looks like, imagine. Let's go back a few years, a couple of centuries, in fact. It was in the 1750s that they first figured out that there is electricity and how it works. It took 150 years before electrical power, electrical energy could be generated for the masses. 1900s, early 1900s. It was in 1910, 1920 that people started getting an electrical connection to their home and have a bulb, power bulb, a light bulb. That was it. Thomas Edison's light bulb. But then so many things. Today, electricity does whatever you can imagine you do with electricity. Internet is like that. Internet is very nascent. Although it has moved much faster than electricity did, but still there are lots of things that are going to happen. There is a big runway in front of you. So maybe some of you want to create your own app and make it big. So the question is, do you have what it takes? Well, my answer is you do. This is again one of the people who had a great impact on how we live. Henry Ford. He invented the assembly line. Yes. He said that if you think you can do a thing or think you can't do a thing, you're right. So it is in your head. So what does it take if you want to create a mega app? You need a big idea. In fact, you need a very big idea. The idea should be such that you can see everybody using it. Co-conspirator. It's very hard to do certain things alone. You need some people around you. Timing, and it's not easy. It takes years. Years of persistence is what it takes. And there are other ingredients. You need to have a good grasp on certain things like planning, design, execution, and revenue model lot of people have done things without having a revenue model and acquired lots of users, and eventually there is or there isn't a revenue model, and it does not matter. So the first three things are more important. Revenue model, if you have from the beginning, you can be, more independent. If you guys like to read, if any of you wants to read more about this or this kind of topics, this same book that I mentioned earlier, How to Build a $1 Billion App by George Berkowski. This guy, he actually worked for two companies, one after the other in succession, that built mobile apps, and they built pretty big apps. One of them was a taxi hailing app called Halo. I don't know if any of you heard of it or used it. It was more popular in Europe. But Uber basically knocked them all out of the park. So this book is actually, incidentally, that link over there, it's free. You can just go to archive.org and read it. So regardless of, now we are coming to the close of this talk, regardless of whatever path you choose, a good, way to succeed in life is to become an expert in your domain. Whatever is your domain, whatever line of work, you become an expert, you become an authority. And that you can only do by doing more and more of it. Lead by example, strive to be a good professional. There are general things that will benefit anybody. Do something that makes a difference. And very importantly, all of these things don't matter if we are not good human beings and we don't have integrity, character, or kindness. So having those things is just as important. Okay, that's the end of the presentation. Any questions? Good. So we'll stop this here, and you guys can now work on your apps. And I'm here until 5 o'clock. Whatever questions, if you have any, I'll be happy to answer.